Real estate networking meetings tend to all look the same. They're held in either a ballroom in a local Holiday Inn or a small banquet hall in a decent restaurant. Both banquet hall and ballroom sound much too elegant for what's really going on in these places. A meeting of minds. It's basically just a room full of, more or less, middle-class men and women aged 25 to 60, with some exceptions, of course, all looking to get ahead. I didn't know any of this going into my first meeting, of course, but it's something I've come to notice over the years. Looking back now, I realize I didn't know what I was getting myself into the first time I walked into that ballroom full of real estate investors. As a newer real estate investor myself, I had already achieved my personal BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, which was to buy my first property. In fact, before attending my first meeting, I had already purchased quite a bit of property as a real estate investor, everything from single-family and multifamily homes to one small apartment building. I had done this mostly with traditional bank financing on the first few properties, and with some creative financing strategies I'd picked up over the years with the rest of my portfolio. 20 units, free and clear. At this point in my career, I thought I was pretty smart, except for the fact that I didn't call my BHAG a BHAG because I didn't know what that term was quite yet. I also didn't know that my goal of 20 properties owned free and clear wasn't really where I'd end up. See, in my mind, 20 properties seemed like a lofty idea, a goal I could one day dream of achieving. 100 properties would be even better. So good I could hardly imagine it. At either point, I could probably sell one property a year after that and live pretty well into retirement. Now, this wasn't a bad goal, and it still isn't for most people, but I was fortunate enough to hit a fork in the road around 10 units. That was the point when I learned that I didn't really need to follow that exact plan, because there might be a better way. My financing problem. As a guy who owned 10 units and was doing pretty well, why was I in this banquet hall just outside Philadelphia on a Thursday night in the fall of 2003? It was simple, really. I had run out of money. I had purchased about 10 properties in my own name and had hit a financing roadblock. I needed money, or at least that's what I thought I needed. Coming up in a pre-social media era, I had, up until this point, always operated solo, networking only with friends, family, and the occasional realtor or broker I'd meet as a part-time realtor myself. Over the years, I'd heard about a local chapter of a National Real Estate Investors Association, REIA group, called the Diversified Investor Group, or DIG. I never could seem to get around to attending a meeting, but it was always an interesting idea to me. It wasn't until I needed something, when I was without any other options, that I decided to go. I thought I could ask other investors how they got around the financing roadblock that had stopped me cold. Before I even entered the meeting room at my first DIG event, I noticed a row of vendor tables. Too intimidated to walk in, I struck up a conversation with a vendor, an investor-friendly mortgage broker from Pittsburgh, whose specialty was in residential and commercial loans. He naturally asked whether it was my first meeting and why I was there, so I described my dilemma to him. Needless to say, my problem wasn't exactly uncommon. It's actually why he was sitting at that vendor table. We exchanged information that day, and he ended up providing me the financing I needed to get out of my rut. Problem solved. But my story doesn't end there. I didn't just find some financing and head home. That was only the beginning. Later on, this very lender showed me multiple ways to access capital, and ultimately he helped me refinance and leverage my properties. I didn't realize it at the time, but my very first encounter at DIG was with someone who showed me one of the powerful concepts in real estate and note investing: leverage.